Friend, I'm so glad that you've joined us today, and it is the beginning of another week, and we are looking forward to our time together as we are looking at the subject that I've entitled I Will. I Will. We are living in a church day where there is a strong spirit of apathy among God's people, and that ought not to be. The Christian life is neither accidental nor incidental, but we are to be intentional and determined in our faithfulness toward the Lord in our walk with Him. Now, this week, we're going to be looking in the book of John, John chapter 12, and the first 11 verses. And I want to read all those verses to us today. The Bible says, "Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was which had been dead, whom He raised from the dead. There they made Him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with Him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped His feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then saith one of His disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray Him, Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This He said, not that He cared for the poor, but because He was a thief, and had the bag, and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, Let her alone. Against the day of my burying has she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Much people of the Jews therefore knew that He was there, and they came, not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom He had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus." Now this week I want us to consider this thought. I will worship. I will worship. Oh, dear friend, the greatest opportunity that you and I have today before us is the opportunity to worship the living God. Too often it is an opportunity that is missed. Sometimes it's missed because of our attitude toward worship. There is this misguided attitude that I've encountered as a pastor through the years that says that worship can only take place when it is spontaneous. Now, there are some very special times when spontaneous worship breaks out, and I'm aware of that. But I want to tell you, there is something deeper and greater about our intentional worship. That we have set aside a time, we have set aside a purpose, and at times we have set aside a gift, a sacrifice, an offering, that we might come and worship the Lord. Now, in this passage before us, we have Mary of Bethany. And again, we ought not to confuse her with the other Marys in the Bible. We know that she was well known to Jesus. Jesus had spent many hours in her home, and she had sat at His feet many times and heard Him teach and preach, dear friend. She was the sister of Lazarus and Martha. The background of this passage really goes back to chapter number 11, when Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that Lazarus was sick. And you remember Jesus tarried until He finally said, "Let's go." And of course, Lazarus had died. Both Mary and Martha had said, "Lord, if you had been here, our brother had not died." You've got to know they had been talking about that amongst themselves. But then Jesus stands before the tomb of Lazarus, and He speaks and He cries out and He says, "Lazarus, come forth." And He did. Now Jesus has returned to Bethany, and we are told it's 6 days before the Passover, and they have a meal prepared for Him. In this moment, friend, Mary comes, and in an intentional act, she worships. She anoints the feet of Jesus. She didn't have any ulterior motives. The only thing that she desired was simply she wanted to worship Jesus. She had come to worship the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Now look, Don't waste a day. Don't miss this opportunity today. Be sure, dear friend, that you take time and be intentional about this. Worship Jesus. Let him know that you love and you adore him today. Make that decision. Oh, today, let's be intentional and let's say this: I will worship Jesus. Hope you'll think about that. Till the next time, may God